Hello, everyone. I hope you all are good today. Well, it's been a while since I actually made a video. I haven't really had time, but I decided to go with through the Python programming another route. Reason being that there's a lot of materials out there in Python programming that you can get your hands on, and I feel like they've done a lot of great job that I cannot actually match that. I do understand the need for someone to actually be comfortable with my own skills. So I decided to say, oh, it's better I take us on an exercise base where we do exercises. And this would actually help us practice because this is one of the problems I had because I watched a lot of videos and implementing them became a problem for me. So here we would actually be I'll actually still be explaining the base or the Python along the line. So we'll be doing exercises and I will be breaking them down as we go. Okay. So it's still the same thing. It's just like we are approaching it from a different angle. And I know a lot of things you will not probably have a full grasp on, but I feel like it's a good approach to actually trying to get you like to do something and understanding why we are doing this in this manner or in another manner would actually help you master the programming language quickly. Okay, so let's start. What I have open here, it's um what I have open on my screen, what you see here is PyCharm, which is an IDE. If you follow from the last video, you will know what an IDE is. It's just an environment where you can write your Python codes. There are a lot of these out there. It makes it easier for you to just have everything in one place. So basically what I've just done is to create a project. Let me just restart this. Okay. So normally when you open your PyCharm, which is this application here, if you see my cursor down here, okay, when you open it, if you've been doing some work there, probably recent files of those work would actually pop up. So if you want to create a new project, you just go to new project. If you want to name it, you name it whatever you want. Then if you have Python already installed, the version will show there. These are various versions I can use, but I usually go for, like I explained in the last video, for a version like 3 versions behind the current version. So I just make sure everything is in place. So when you click here, it would actually create an environment for you, which is what I already just did here. And now, on today's video, we'll be doing this exercise. It's a basic exercise, basic arithmetic and string. We write a program that takes two numbers as input and adds, subtract, multiplies, and divides them, and check if it's a if and check if the result of addition is a palindrome. A palindrome is simply a word or a, a word or a phrase or a number that when you reverse and you read still means the same thing. For instance, a word like you see here, madam, right? If you start reading the word from behind here, you'll notice that it's still the same madam, right? And for the number, if you start from front to, you have 1 2 1. If you start from back, you have 1 2 1. So that's a palindrome also. So that's what we'll be doing. So what we are doing is write a program that would add numbers together, subtract them, can subtract them, can multiply them, and can divide them, and also just check if it's a palindrome. Okay. Okay. So the first thing first, let's create our Python file. So I'll just click here. That means I'm clicking on this project folder, and I can go to Python file. If you wanted to create another project in this folder, I would go here, but this is where I go, Python file, and we can name it Palindrome. Let's just do Palindrome. Palindrome.py. So like mentioned in the last video, all Python files will be named .py. If you're using Jupyter Notebook, it will be named something else, but mostly people want to see these .py files. They mostly want to use them, okay? So the file has been created. Here's the file. And if you're not used to, this is the IDE, so it helps you like put everything in one place. It helps for organization and easy access or writing of your code, because the interpreter will be there a lot more. You can do a lot more in one place. Okay, so let's just copy this aspect of it and paste it, because it's always good to describe any project you're working on. Like, to, for instance, if you're writing a code, it's always good to have a short description of what you're doing in that file, so someone reading your code or someone coming there to look at what you're doing understands what you're trying to do. Another Python programmer might just pick this file up and will be able to tell what you're trying to do. All right. So basically, when you have these like words or phrases in this, what you've simply done is you've commented it out, meaning Python recognizes this as a comment, meaning it's not running anything, it's not doing anything with that piece of material. It's just for viewers, right? So it would not do anything. And you actually use this when you're using like, or you're trying to write chunks of materials there to describe what you're doing, probably. And comment is actually pretty much used for that, like to indicate what you're trying to do. So it helps ease, because you just imagine like you have like all sorts of file codes written. Even you, when you're trying to update your code or change something, if you don't have like these comments, it becomes too chunky, and to actually follow an update becomes a problem on its own. So these comments actually help you update easily, or also help other people that would use your code or would try to access your code or read your code to understand what you're trying to do better. So it's a cleaner way of actually programming. It's not like you must, well, conventionally you have to, but if you don't do it, the code would still run, right? Yeah, it's just an easy way to explain what you're doing to people. So, and this part is actually called comments, right? Now, if I just wanted to write a single comment, I'll just use the hashtag, and I do like the section 1. Since this is just pretty much one line, I could just allow it like that. But because I had a lot to do, that's why I put it in this, I don't know what it's called, but I think it's columns. Yeah, double columns. So it helps to when you have chunks of comments, right? Okay, so let's start. So we are basically trying to get um, an arithmetic, basic arithmetic, right? So we are trying to add two numbers. We are trying to add numbers, divide them, multiply them, and get the result. So in order for you to get information, or in order for you to get your code, ask user to give them information or to provide them information, Python has a built-in function. Functions are just made like functions are more of code that are written especially for cases where you for repeated tasks. So if I keep having to sweep my house every day, what pretty much I would do is I can just write a function, a sweep house function, that would actually just do that. Each time I want to use it, I'll just call sweep house, and when I call that function sweep house, it knows like I'm trying to sweep, or I'm trying to sweep the house, so it will sweep the house rather than me always doing that. So I will just write a function that does that, and each time I need to sweep the house, I just call the function sweep house, and it sweeps the house. So that's mostly it. So in that light, that's pretty much what we will be doing as well here. We are trying to use functions to be able to solve this problem. Like I said, we are having everything go, and anything you don't understand, you can just pause the video and go through it for a bit, try to understand it, ask questions. I mean, one thing you also have to maintain is don't feel like you have to be that comfortable. I don't think there, even me, I'm not an expert, I still research things. The only thing is I do understand how to use the Python library. I do understand how to seek or search for what I need to use to be able to do something. For instance, if I did not know, I'll probably just have to like say, I'll Google search like what can you use to get user input from user, right? If I search that, how can you get user input from user? You would see something like this. Like I can do this. How can you get input from user in Python? And what will happen is I will get suggestions on how to get user input. Okay, you see, they're telling me to use this, right? Okay. So a lot of programmers, right? That's why they say if you know how to program in one language, it's actually easier for you to learn the other languages. So don't bother about don't feel like it's too much. Anything is just for you to understand it. Then you can always Google search. I don't really feel like there's a programmer that actually writes everything from the top of their head, like they don't know. I don't think there is. There might be, but I don't think that there is one that would cram everything. So part of what you'll be doing, or part of what a lot of programmers do, is they already know a lot of things, so it's easier for them to search what they need to use, and they just easily implement it. So you don't think like you have to master everything before you. No, no, no. Just understanding what you need is enough for you to actually just start with your programming. Okay, so that's why I decided to break it down in this step. So the video might be long, but I'm trying to walk us through the whole process so it doesn't come out like, oh, it's too much. And please, please, every exercise we do, try as much as possible to try it out for yourself. Try it out. There are different methods there are different ways of doing things. So you just try out as much as you can and make sure you at least get the concept. Okay. Okay. So let's start. So the first thing first, I would like to define a function for these. So I would like to use a functional approach to solve this problem. So what do I do? Um, Let me define a function def. What do I call this function? I can call it a palindrome, right? And I pass it result as a parameter, right? Let me just do this. Okay. Um, Sorry about that. Don't bother yourself about this part. Hopefully, in later videos, I'll try to go through other stuff so you would understand it. Okay. So basically, when you want to define a function, right? When you want to define a function, this is actually how you define a function. Python identifies this def. Immediately Python sees this, Python understand, oh, okay, is creating a new functions. Python have inbuilt functions already, a lot of inbuilt functions, and you will see us use a lot of them. But know that Python is just trying to identify the function. Okay. Now, that's how you define a function in Python. And now this actually is a parameter, right? Each time you define a function, you have to give it parameters, simply stating like things that it needs. If I wanted to use like 2, 3 parameters, depending on what I was supposed to use in this function, I'll probably just give a comma and give the next parameter and so on and so forth. We'll get to that, but just understand that each time you define a function, you have to be able to give it parameters. So parameters are just like values or things they would do or things that you expect um, from that function. Okay, things you would pass to that function, like they are like inputs that you would use in that function, if like in a sense. Okay. Okay. So basically, I'm just, it's like a blueprint. I'm telling this Python like this function will take something called result. Whatever it is, Python will treat it. It would take something. So it's pretty much just the parameter, right? Now let's move forward. And if there's, like I said, if there's anything you don't understand, then don't don't hesitate to pause the video, try to look for or research more on it. Yeah, it's actually supposed to. The reason we are doing exercises is actually because we want to get your hands dirty. Okay. So now we decide to do a result equal to, okay. So basically, normally from Python, and when you're doing Python, you should understand that each time you give this is a variable. Result here is a variable. So what is result doing? It is just, we are taking whatever is passed in this function. We are taking whatever is passed in this function or whatever is given in this function, and we are putting that as an input here, and we are saying this actually is an input, an inbuilt function, and a string, meaning whatever you pass within this is converted to be a string. So this, what it does is it convert whatever this is to a string. So whatever value you give, it will convert that to a string, right? It will convert it to a string because it has to treat it as a string. So once it does that, it now saves it in this variable called result. I know we are using results. Sometimes you might be confusing. This is just a blueprint telling Python like telling you like, oh, this function will receive something. You could name it as, anything. You could name it as what else? You can just name it as your name. Your name. Anything. It doesn't matter the naming, but conventionally it's always good to try to name it as how do they say? They say relative names, because if I know it's supposed to take something that's result because I'm working with trying to work on the result, then it makes it more convenient for me to use result. Because if I name it as my name, reading the program becomes a little bit difficult, but it doesn't change anything. So that's why you would see something like this. And don't confuse this with this. I I have just simply chosen to, okay, let's do it this way. Okay, we can do it this way. We can say result convert. So it makes a lot more sense, right? So what are we doing now? So at least I'm trying to name this variable so it explains what it's trying to do here. So when it takes this, regardless of what it is, it will convert it to a string. And I want that, whatever that is, to be saved in this. So this variable now would save whatever was here. Say I call this function and I pass it Bruno. This Bruno will be taken and converted to a string. You might say, oh, but Bruno is already a string. Yes, but what if I pass a number 1? What happens, right? It's not a string. But what I have to do here is to let this function actually treat it as a string. So it would actually treat it as a string. So understand why we are doing it, right? Okay, so that's why. So now we are actually, yeah, we've converted that. That's the reason why we are converting it. We are converting it because sometimes it would definitely not be a string, since we are dealing with trying to prove that it is a palindrome. We would have to, there are numbers that are palindrome as well, so we are also constrained that's why this is coming in handy. And now functions always return something, meaning they always do something. So we want to return uh, these results. Yep, we want to return the result, but I will do something really, I don't know if I want to explain it would take too much, but I would explain in the next program, because this is a series of videos, right? So I would explain strings a little bit in the next video in detail. So what we are simply doing is we are given this result. We are given this result convert, which is the value we got from the above. We are giving it this -1, which is simply just saying reverse. So read it from the reverse angle and save it. Like whatever was here, take this, take whatever you had here, read it from the reverse direction. This is what this code is actually saying. Read it from the reverse direction, right? And you save it back to me, right? And you just save that to result convert still, and that will be what you return to me. Know that Python actually handles things from right to left, right? From right to left. So it would always deal with this. It would always deal with this part of the code first before it does this. So this one will be done first before it does this part. So whenever Python is reading your code, is reading it from this direction to this. So from right to left, always, always, each time. When this line of code is run, it is run like this. This one is run like this. So this one like this. So what is it doing? It is reading this. I said also read this in reverse direction. So we read it in reverse direction. If you read this in reverse direction, and it's exactly, this is meaning exactly the same as this, return. So you're returning this only if this condition is met. I could have written this in several ways. I could have written separate lines, but I am trying as much as possible to reduce, because also reducing the line of code also helps, right? Because I could have written this like this. I could have said if okay, I could have said this result convert reverse equal this. Meaning what? Meaning take this result and reverse the direction, right? Right? Yes, because I'm just simply take whatever you have here, reverse it, right? Reverse it. That means start reading from back. This -1 is from the last digit. Start reading from there to the first digit. Okay. Now I've said that. Now this is what I will do still. I will now say if if these two now, because I want to say reading it from behind from back to front, if it's the same like reading from front to back, right? Then that's when I know, because we already defined palindromes as a word that you can reading from back to front is the same as reading from front to back, right? Or a number reading from back to front is the same. Okay, if that is the case, so I'm trying to check now if these two are the same. That means this one, when you read it like this and you reverse the direction and read it like this, if they are the same, so what I will do is if result convert is exactly this is how you say exactly. When you put one equal sign, you're saying equate it to get all what you have there and store it here. But when you use double sign and double equal sign, you're saying if it's exactly, you're doing a comparison in Python. So if um result convert is exactly the same as this, right? Return return I will now just return the word. No. I'll now just return it. Meaning what? It should give me that, right? And I'll just say, if that is that, hey, sorry, I forgot this sign. Yeah. Then you say print, print, print. It's a palindrome. Okay. So what am I saying? Okay, I said I could have written this code like this still. I was trying to show like if I didn't want to just do this, but simply I could have written this code like this as well. So what am I doing here? I'm trying to get the result revert, convert reverse, right? And now I'm telling this is actually the line that says read it from back to front. And if you read it from back to front, store whatever you have there to reverse convert. So if these two, reading it from front to back, is exactly the same as reading it from back to front, right? Print, that means this value, result convert, the result that was converted to a string, print it. What value is that? If it was madam, print that madam is a palindrome. So this is a print statement. This is actually an inbuilt function. Meaning what? Meaning everything, when you put something in it and you say print this, it will be printed on the console. That means it would show on the console like what you're saying, the instruction that you've said inside here will be printed. You will see it. You'll be able to see it. Okay. So I could have written this code like this, which is also still good, right? Now, this is also accepted, okay? But in Python, there's also something called writing good programs, which is you have to also consider reducing the number of lines, because if you write too much lines also for a large project, for a simple project like this, that might not be an issue, right? But also part of what we are trying to learn here is how to effectively write Python program as also to as an expert, right? So that's why this bunch of lines, at first I would have written this code like this and it still is okay, right? But I would just want to summarize everything here and just have it return this for me, have it return this. So this is me. This is, yeah, I am just trying to be professional, more professional right here. I've reduced those lines into just one simple line, right? I did not have to give it a new variable, equity, then before I compare them. So what I could just do is to take whatever is there. I'm telling them, like, I'm telling Python to reverse it, because Python can do that in one go. So I'm just telling Python, look at this, or read this code from, or read whatever value you have from the back to front, and look at it. If it's exactly the same as this, which is actually the front, from reading from front to back, if it's the same thing, return that to me. So return keyword here is actually saying, it's a keyword in Python also. It's a function in Python that will return something to you in the form of function. So it's also, it returns whatever you ask it to return. So here we've asked it to return whatever we get here. So that's exactly what it would do, right? You will see a lot of these. A lot of functions always have to return you something. You understand? So you'll see a lot of that. Okay. So far, we are trying to write this in a professional manner, okay? So if that is this, if this is exactly this, return this. So I think it would return true, right? Yeah, it would return true. Like if it's the same, it would say true. And because we are trying to, we could have returned it like initially. We could have had this and say return this, which would have returned whatever string we had there. But we are trying to be more professional with our code. So basically we are doing something else, okay? Now, will I have to write another function? So this will return true. Now, this line would make sure it return, if that is the same, if they are the same, it will return, it will say it's true that they are the same. So we are going to use this function, right? We are going to use this function. Just follow along. I know right now it might be too cumbersome, or it might look complicated, but just try to follow along, okay? Just try to follow along. So let's remove this. Okay. Now, let's try to have another function, okay? We are trying to have another function now, because we said the program actually says we should this is just if this function is actually meant to just check if the word or the number is a palindrome. So this is what we have done here. This part of the program, we've succeeded to have something, a function that will check if it's a palindrome. So each time we call this function, anything that is passed to it, it will just check if it's a palindrome, and it will tell us true or false. It will tell us if it's true, true being that it's a palindrome, and false being that it's not a palindrome. Meaning, when it's exactly the same reading from back to front, it will turn true. When it's not, it will turn false. Now, we also need a function that will actually get user input. Like you remember we earlier said, you can get user input, right? We also need a function to do that. So by you just pausing and guessing how how do you do this? We say we need a function. How do you define a function? Just okay, same thing. We will still use the def, which is just define. Now we will do def, which is we can name this other. Now this other function that we are defining here, we are trying to get user input, right? So you can name it whatever, but the conventionally accepted or said you should always try to define functions. Since our functions are action words, like they are verbs, it's always good to use verbs, okay? So we will say enter input, right? We can use that as the name of this function. Enter input. Now look at what I've done here. Before we give the parameter, look at what I've done here. I'll just put pass, which just now look at what I've done here. The first one, since it was a single word, I left it like that. But had it been there were two separate words, I can't write a function like this. Python will not recognize it. A function has to be named and the name has to be. So regardless of what, you can add as many, but it's always advisable to keep it simple. But they should not be separated. That's why the hyphen comes in. And you cannot do this. If you notice, Python does not recognize this, right? But if you do this, Python recognize it. That's a function Python can recognize because the naming is done correctly. When you separate it, it's not correct. So Python will easily tell you. And that's why you see when I'm writing, you see sometimes it's highlighted here because this this IDE is set in such a way it actually just highlights those stuff. But if you are not doing it in an IDE, you would probably write it and not know what is on until you run it. So that's the help. That's one of the things an IDE is good for as well. Also will just highlight mistakes for you easily, and you can as well just correct yourself. Okay. So what are we trying to do in this function? We are trying to get user input. So right here, I am not passing any parameter, right? But I'm not passing any parameter. Could I have passed something? Yes, you can write a function. You can pass a parameter, meaning you can tell the function what is supposed to take. You cannot pass it. And in so doing, when it is run, it depends on whatever is in that the content of that Python of that function that will determine what that function does, right? So you can define these parameters, you can leave it blank, it's up to you. Okay, now let's use try, which is I don't know if I should say it's a function. It's a way of actually making sure that we keep I've used it a lot without really knowing exactly what but basically, if you can understand it, is each time you run your code, what will happen is it will try this part of the code, which is like the if statements that you use, things that Python understands. Python understands that you're telling it to try these lines of code, and also if that is not, if it will keep trying this. If it will try this, if it's not what it is expecting, then it would raise an exception. So mostly when you're using this issue, when you're trying to cache like errors in your code, basically this is when you're trying to cache errors in your code. So if this is not what is expected, it would raise an exception. Exceptions are always errors. They are a class of function. This a class in Python. Exceptions a class in Python, or a library, if I could say, that actually handles these errors in Python, because Python is so organized where these things have been taken care for you. So a lot of these things, they're already made. Imagine you just had to write a program where you have to cover all the bases. It will be so cumbersome. So Python has helped you to organize and make sure things that you easily see are taken care of already. Easy stuff are taken care of already. You understand? So you can now tweak or customize them in solving your own specific problem without having to go to the crash level of doing all the writing of everything. Can you decide to do that? Yes. But why would you go through the stress if that is already maintained or that is already done for you? So this try here we'll do um let's give a variable. We are trying to get the first name, right? We are trying to get the first name, right? And what do we say we use to get the first name? We said input, right? Input is an inbuilt function. If you notice, I'm writing because my ID recognize it is popping up already, right? So that's a function, an inbuilt function. So when I have these, what he understands, Python understands already is I'm going to be getting something from a user. That means anyone using this code or anyone trying to run this code would have to give me information, will have to give me something. So what am I requesting for? I have to define what I'm requesting for. So I will say enter first. No, can I capitalize it? No, enter first number. Okay. Now, why is this important? Our function. Remember what we are trying to do. Always remember what we are trying to do. We are trying to get write a program that adds numbers, that can add numbers, that can divide numbers, that can multiply numbers, and that can. So each time, if you want to have like take like four, 5 numbers and add them together, that's fine. If you want to take like 10 numbers and add them together, that's fine. If you want as many as you want, but here we'll just limit it to taking 2 numbers. I he even states that in the instruction, so we'll follow the instruction. The instruction said 2. We could have said 10. That's fine. So that's why first number we have this. Now, if you run this code, this line of code, when it runs, it would pop up a question to it will pop up something to the screen of the user and said enter first number, and it will not run the code beyond that until the user provides the program something, right? It might not be even the first number, it might just be something else, right? Yeah. What if the user decides now to provide madam? The user does not provide a number. The user, instead of writing a number like 10, the user write madam or a word or something. What will happen? That's not what we wanted, right? So how do we make sure we get what we wanted? We now would say treat. We have to now be able to treat whatever the user gives us as something, right? Let's treat it as what? If we wanted to be explicit, we want to be explicit to make sure the user always gives us what we want, right? Because the user can choose to write madam, like I said, but how do we force the user? How do we make sure the user enters a number, right? We say this. Just in case the user enters something else, we are trying to say you treat whatever this user will enter here as an int. This is an inbuilt function also. It's the same as this string, right? Telling this, like everything that's in here, treat it as a string. Okay? Treat that as an int rather. That's the same thing we did up there, right? So we are doing the same thing down here. Treat that as an int. Int simply just means integer. If you notice, you come here, depending on the IDE you're using. If you come here, you can find out or you can read more on Python about this. Okay, you can read more, but basically it's just telling Python to treat that as a string. Whatever you have there, treat it as a string. Okay, now that's easy. The person can still enter a word. It doesn't mean that he has not entered a word, right? The person can enter anything. It doesn't mean he has not entered, but we would handle those cases as well. But right now, we're telling Python to treat it as an int, depending on what they enter. If they enter words, we treat. So we have to make sure we force users to actually enter strings. But let's move forward. Now, the second part is we want to add, divide, subtract, and do all sorts of things, right? We want to add two numbers. So let's take now this. Now, whatever we have here, I beg your pardon. I beg. Now we could leave it as this, but it's better for us to manipulate. It will be easier for us to manipulate if we store this in a variable, right? So we store whatever you get from here. Store that as first number. First number, right? So store that as first number. That's simple. We've not done anything. We are just taking this and store it to a variable, first number. And what is a variable? A variable is just an object or something that saves information for us, right? So whatever the user would give, it will be stored somewhere in Python called first name. So each time I say first name, first number, right, rather, whatever input that was given, Python is recognizing, is going there and picking whatever that was given and giving it back to me. Like, okay, take this. That's what I have in first number. Okay, now we have to do the same for the second number, right? So second number is pretty much the same thing. We are trying to get the second number, the two numbers that we want to add, subtract, whatever we want to do, whatever operation we want to do, we want to do the same. So right now, because I already explained up there, I'll just write that again. Input is pretty much the same thing, right? Okay. Enter second number, correct? Now, we have already written codes that actually take first number, second number. What do we do next? Now, what operation are we trying to do? Are we trying to add, subtract, or divide, or multiply, right? What are we trying to do, right? We have to be able to identify what we are trying to do, right? So we can name this part of it. We can say input, the same thing. We are trying to let the user decide for us. Same thing, input, right? Now, let's do enter operation, operation. We can now help the user with these. Plus, minus, where is that at sign? A multiplication sign rather. And division. Right? This is what we have. Right? Let's give it. So when we say operator, let's name this. Let's give this variable as operator. It's pretty much the same thing, so don't get confused. It's pretty much the same thing. So we are everything when the third thing that would input that the user will put, he has to put one of these. So when he put one of these, that means he's choosing an operation that he wants to do, right? He's choosing the operator. And what if it's a plus sign, that means he wants to perform addition, right? If it's a plus sign, that means he wants to perform addition. And what will happen is that will be stored here. We are going to use that later. So it's pretty much the same thing. Now, we basically gotten all the inputs we wanted from the user, right? The user probably gave us already at this line now. The user has given us the first number, giving us the second number, and he has chosen, or he or she has chosen what they actually want to do, right? The operation they want to perform. So in the case where the user entered a word, a sentence, or something else, right? We will do an except now. So if you try, that's not the user is not giving us what we required. Use the exception and raise a value error. Meaning what? Meaning what if you don't the user does not enter what we want, like the numbers, right? When Python looks at it, it's not a number. What should Python do? Okay, just raise an exception. Raise an exception, which an exception in this case is value error. And what do you do with that? Tell the user what is happening. Input. Like you have to input a numerical number. So what will happen is this try except will keep running until the user does what is right. For instance, the user starts here, runs the line of code. When he gets to this line of code, as of first number, the user gives 5. Second number, the user gives madam. What happens is immediately this line is run, because since it's not run, this line is run, and it will raise this value error and tell the user input a numerical number, a numerical value rather. There's no number, is already numeric, so a numerical value, yeah, or a numeric, input a numerical value or a numeric. Okay, so this one will be raised, and when it's raised, this line will still be run. Like, okay, enter second number. What would happen is he still has a chance. That's why this try is here. That's what this try does. It will keep doing until you meet this condition before it would go to the next. If not, you will keep here until probably you have to terminate the program, because the program will not go past this without actually having this. So this try and error is like forcing, keeping the user in that loop, or in that space until these conditions are met before you can proceed with running the program. So it doesn't mean this one will not run, and understand that Python wants line for line. So this line up here will be run before this one. So this one will be run before this one. So the same way. So when it gets to this position, until this is met, it will keep you there, or probably if you don't continue, you're tired, you probably would X out or close the file. But as long as you want to actually run this program, this is what you have to do. Okay, you have to like really feed make sure you provide the information as it's supposed to be provided, right? Okay, so far I hope you're following. Now this is where we've written uh, um, um, two separate functions. Now what do we do? These functions are separate, meaning what? Meaning when I've not called these functions already. These functions, this is what they will do, but I have not, in our code we have not called it, right? We've not made use of it. It's just there. Python recognized, we've given Python a blueprint. What happens is this: if I run this program now, Python just looks at it. It successful. It ran successful without no error, right? That's okay. But Python is just like, okay, I've seen your code, I've seen your blueprint, but I don't have you've not used it. You've not asked me to use it. So that's pretty much what you see down here, right? I ran it. This button actually shows you should run it, right? The Python just did, okay, I have that, but you've not asked me to use it. So this is a blueprint we give it Python. We need to actually use it, right? Okay, I just wanted to show you follow up. Okay, let's proceed, right? Now, let's use another function now that will do the calculation for us. You okay? Like I said, we're going to solve this in a functional way. That's why we are using function. There are a lot of ways to do it, and I would like you to try other ways. Okay, this is my method of doing it. I want you to try other methods. So when you get this, try other method, and I will be having this on the GitHub, so you can have access to this particular code and you can play around with it, change it as you want, do your own stuff. That's fine. Okay. Yes. Each lessons will always be on GitHub. Okay. Okay. So now, like I said, let's have let's have um let's do define another function that will actually perform what we want, like all this now, dividing, adding, and stuff. So how do we define function again? Def, right? Now, what do we call this one? Let's just call it calculate, right? Let's call this one calculate. And we have this. So basically, this is how you must define any function. Yeah, this in this this column is actually everything here. If you notice, like we have this here, if you notice, Python is an organized language. If you write it haphazardly, indentation is an issue, meaning if it's wrongly indented, it will not work. Okay, if it's wrongly indented, it will not work. Some programming language, if you don't indent it properly, it would work, but they always advise still for you to really indent your work because it helps other people read your code easily, right? But indentation in Python is a must, because if I just indent this poorly like this, say I was supposed to write this here, I come here and I write it in the same line, it will not work. It will throw an error. So indentation is good. Now let's do, I write pass. Pass always is when I just have defined a function. I don't want to give it any instruction. You can write pass to just let Python not break while I try to run the code if you've not had time to complete it. Okay. So now, what do you think we need to look at right here? Right here to use this function calculate. So basically, calculate will be calculating and using the operator that we want to do the necessary stuff, right? Because the necessary stuff we wanted is something that will add two numbers together, divide, subtract, whatever we want. So let's give Python the blueprint. First name, first name, first name. I want you to get first name. I want you to have something, the first parameter, first name. If you notice, while I'm writing here, it doesn't show any, it doesn't pop up something for me because here I'm still defining things. But you might look at it and feel like this is already up, This one, whatever I have here is for this function. It cannot, outside of this function is not usable. Whatever I have in here is only for this function, right? Whatever I have in here is only for this function. It's not used for here. So when I'm writing here, I'm just saying first name, and I'm still saying, why am I always saying, I just wrote the program on input taking names and I keep saying name. First number rather. Okay. Second number. And operation. The operation you want to perform, is it addition, is it subtraction? So You notice this one now, I'm telling Python that I want this function called calculate to have 3 parameters, meaning each time you call this function, you have to give it 3 parameters. You have to give it the name, the first number, the second number, and you have to also give it the operation that you want it to perform for you. And now, what do I do? This is just a blueprint. I've just defined it. That's what I want to do here. That's what I want to use here. Now, but I've not been able to define I've not been able to define um I've not been able to define this operation, or actually, because writing a plus, what will happen in a command line, writing that, how will it recognize that this, when you see this, do addition? How? I have to be able to define that operation. I have to be able to tell the operation, like, when you see this sign, right, make sure you add this number, because you see, I've just taken, yeah, I just collected them, but I've not been able to say, when you see this sign, add this two. When you see this one, subtract this two. When you see, we could have written another function for it, but I just want to keep everything in calculate, right? That's what I'm talking about it right here now, right? But you could have chosen to write another function that would perform these operations, right? And calculate will just be okay. You call that and it's okay. But right here, this is what we have now. Okay. So in order for us to do it, what am I doing? I can do now this. I can name. Oh, let's use a dictionary rather. Okay, let's create a dictionary called operations, so we can access the. Okay, why are we choosing to use a dictionary, right? A dictionary always says words in key value pairs. So because I want to use it, I will explain. But a dictionary would throw more light on it later. If you don't understand it, just understand that there are dictionaries too in Python. So a common way of defining a dictionary, that's it. When you write this like this, Python understand that you've just defined this and you've named a dictionary, so it knows that that's a dictionary. But what we are trying to have here now, we are trying to, like, really break down what this dictionary is. And dictionaries always have key value pairs. I will throw more light on that. The first one that we'll have here for this dictionary is the plus sign, right? And let's give its value. The value of this, now, you would say, I think this is really lambda x, such that x, lambda xy, yeah, xy. Okay. I will just explain this first part. Okay. So dictionaries are mostly like this. I will explain. Dictionary are mostly, if you want to store the names of students and their grades that they have in a dictionary. You have student equal, you're storing it in a dictionary. Okay. First student, Bruno, right? His grade, A. You have second student, Oro. You have grade, A. You have third student, Divine. you have grade B. So this is actually a way of arranging elements or stuff. So dictionaries are pretty much used in this sense where you have pairs of stuff that you want to store, right? You can have dictionaries of dictionaries that will explain more on that. I just wanted to introduce that idea of dictionaries to you. Okay. Now, if you already understand this idea, this is the key. The first one is the key. The one before the one before the colon, right, is the key, and its value is this, which is because dictionaries are always key value pairs, So this is a key. So if I try to access this key, I will get its value. If I try to access this key, I will get its value. So if I try to access the key let me say students Bruno, what I will get, what Python will print for me if I try to print this. If I try to print this in Python, what Python will print for me will be A, capital A. It means it will print the value of this. You understand? So we'll explain more about dictionary. We'll have a lot of exercise to do on dictionaries alone. Just bear with me, okay? Like I said, you can read more on dictionaries. You can read more. Don't practice exercise. Use exercise to practice, because a lot of times I notice when I'll go watch a YouTube video about this and I'll come back and I'll forget things because I'm not actually practicing. Practice in this way would actually make you get better quickly. Okay, so what lambda is a function. I will not go detailing into this, but just understands that what it does is it identifies x and y. If the key is this, what I'm trying to do here is the key is exactly plus. What you get from operation is a plus, what you do is you know that there's x and y. Take x and add it with y. Just do the stuff there. Okay, that's pretty much what I'm trying to do. So I will take the time to do the same for every one of these signs. I'll take this. Let me just repeat it. Right, this one now is, if it's minus, do the same, but here you will do minus, right? Pretty much the same thing. If it's addition, multiplication, multiply them. If it's division, divide them. So lambda is a function that is telling these two, okay, identify these things and do exactly this. And here we have to do add a simple line of code, because dividing by 0 is undefined. So, or it always complicate issue for us. So we have to say we have to specify this case, if y is, yeah, so because we don't want, why are we trying to add an if statement here? Because we don't want, when y, imagine like the second number that someone gives is a 0, right? Dividing by 0, divide 5 by 0. You can punch that on the calculator, you'll notice like it's an issue. So what we'll do is, if y is not equal to 0, right? We are putting that here. Say else, right? None. Okay. This is actually to avoid dividing by 0. So if y is equal to 0, this line will not be run. It will be run, but it will just produce none because it's y is 0. So if the second input that the user give is 0 and the operation is a division, it will first of all check. I told you like Python always check from left to right, from right to left, right? So you first of all check y. If y is equal to 0, it will just, the else will be raised. So you just print none, right? But if not, if y not 0, it will do the division. Okay, I hope you follow. I understand it would be a lot, but I think this is the best approach. Okay, just keep practicing. All right, so now we've been able to define our operations, like what they should do, each of them, what they should do. Now we have to be able now to return that operation, right? Now this is what this operation does. That is a dictionary, right? So what we are trying to do now is to make sure we have now, we return something, right? At least we have to return something. We are doing a calculation, so give us something. Where we give you, when user gives you a plus, means he wants addition of those two numbers that he provided. Now return the answer of that, probably because we are trying to get something. So we'll say operation, right, dot get, because we are dealing with dictionary. This dot get is a method, a function in dictionary that helps to get the key pairs, right? Yes. So key value pairs rather. Yeah. So we'll do operation lambda x y none. Okay, I think we would, let me just write it out. Okay, so that's pretty much what we are trying to do here. Nope, we don't have to. Okay, so we are returning this, the operation, the first name, the last name. This function, that's what this function is doing, right? It will do the math for us and does everything. Okay, still good. Like I said, we would treat operations like thoroughly, but know that this is actually getting, like, it would look at what your operation is right here. This function will look at what it is and it will do this calculation, right? And if it's a plus, it will do the calculation like this. It will get you, if it's a plus, it will get you, you add all both numbers and it will do it. And if it's a minus, it will do so and it will return this to you. Okay, it will return this to you. Okay, now we still have to access this somehow. We still have to be able to access this. Okay, so how do we access this? How do we run this? Like I said, this is just function. We've not called the functions. We've not done anything. We've written 3 functions already. We have to be able to call the function. That's the only time we are using these functions. That's the only time we are using this. We have given them the blueprint of what these functions should do. But now we need to use them to actually be able to calculate as we want to. We've defined everything. Everything looks good. If you run it, you see it says finish process without code. Code 0 simply means no error, right? Now we've been able to do that. How do we now use these functions? We've defined the blueprint. The blueprint is good. How do we use this function so that each time now someone gives us this or someone run this code, all these things actually show up as we want? Okay. I know it's a bit technical for starters. I know it's technical but I'm telling you, the only way you get to a professional level is actually getting your hands dirty. I started avoiding it, keep watching videos, feeling like and still feeling I am not adequate or I don't know enough. And this approach actually helped me a lot. So I understand what you don't understand. Try to ask questions. Try to look at it. What is this or stuff? Pause it. We play it in. That will help. Okay, let's go now to this part. We are trying now to implement this. So if exactly if it's exactly mean. Okay, so this line of code, if underscore underscore name underscore underscore is exactly mean. So we are comparing if this is this. So what we are trying to do here and why this is necessary is sometimes you write programs, right? And you take the programs and you implement it in another file or call this file. Like I can choose to call this file on a different file. But if that is the case, sometimes I just want only to use this function. I don't want like to run the exact page. So what I'm simply telling this part, like this part of this code, only run this part of this code while this file called palindrome.py is only when that file is run. Else, if that's not the case, don't run this part of this code that I'm trying to give you now. So meaning what? Meaning if I import this file in another page, then I'm trying to use all these functions blueprint. I can use the functions blueprint differently there. They will work. But here, what I'm doing down here is just for when you're running it on this page, on this file. When you're running this file, you have not imported it. So run this is what this is telling you. So if name underscore underscore name underscore underscore is exactly underscore underscore main, like it's the main, then that is where you run this one, right? Okay, so why we will still do our try block. We'll still use our try except block, and then yeah, we still do a try except block and then see what happens. So now this is where we want to use these functions. Now we have to be able to call these functions. Okay, now let's still do a try block as we did previously. Now we are saying, what are we trying to call here? Okay, we are trying to call the first function. At this point, we are not trying to call this one, but we are trying to call the second function rather, input, right? But look at this. We have first name, second name, operation. So what should we do if we are calling this? So I'm saying this. I can say call. I know it. This actually returns what? If you notice, we had the oh oh. I did not actually return anything. Oh, that's bad. Okay, let's go back. Let's just return this. Let's return. Let this function return first name. Let it return this first name, second name. Why am I always saying first name, second name? first number, second number, and operator, right? All these things, we need them. So always return it each time this function is one. Always return the if is one and raise an exception, right? Yeah. So now what this is simply doing is at this stage, this will be returned. These three things will be returned, whatever value the input the user gave. But let's now try to use it now. So when we call it here, because we know that it will be returned in that order, I'll have to say I want to call the function, but that function actually returns. Okay, let me just put it this way. I will do it from back. I will do it backwards. Okay, enter name. You notice now enter name appears now because it's a function. Python understands I've defined a new function, enter input. Now that's a function, right? Up here, this is where I define it. It's not an inbuilt function, but now I'm trying to use it here. You saw that it's there, right? Now, what parameters? I told you now, each time you call this, you have to give it something. But because we did not define a parameter here, if we had given it a parameter here, right, like we would have to include the parameters here. You will see for another function, for this function that we gave parameters, you will see for it, like when we call it, we'll have to specify the parameters. But this one, since we did not, okay, that's fine. Now, what is this function actually doing? This function is returning this. It's asking for first number, second number, then is returning them to you. So each time I call it, it would ask for those things, meaning this will be, each time I call this function, meaning it will run this. This line will be run, this one 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 too will be run. If the only time this line is this part of the code is run is when the user does not give me what I required. But if not, this line will not be run. It will continue here like that. But now, when I call it, this is what will be run when I call it and the user gives me exactly what I'm supposed to. Yeah, this is it. So calling it here, this is what we run. Except the user gives me like a word or something else, then this is when this part will be run and it will tell the user input a numerical value, right? But if not, now calling it here, this is what we run. So I know like this is what will be returned, right? I have to now give it, I can equate it to be able to receive that. Okay, you know, the left hand side, always remember left hand side run to whatever is on. Okay, so I'm trying to get first number. I can name this as anything right here, but I know it will receive three inputs. So let me name it at anything so that you understand. First, second, and operation or operator, right? So what is happening now? Because this will actually return three things in this order, first number, second number, and this, I am taking this one and I'm equating it like whatever you return, I want you to save it to first, second. It's a shorthand way of just calling function and giving them variables. So this is now me creating new variables. So these new variables we saw this first part. This second variable will store this second part. This third variable will store this third part because that's what will be returned. It will return three things. That function will always return three things to us. And those three things, I want to save those three things in different variables. So you can name the variables here as you want. But mostly it still makes a lot of sense if you can just still name them. Like first number, second number, and operator, right? So it's still the same thing. If you can just do that, I just wanted to show you understand, like, this thing sometimes is confusing. You might feel like this is the same thing, but I told you anything here only here. It's only used here. So this one is completely different thing. Though they are named the same, but it's just being used in different sections differently. By the time you write fewer codes, you'll get comfortable with that aspect. At first I was confused, but why will we use it here? Why will we that those questions will come, but don't be scared. Just understand what you're trying to do. Okay, we've done that part. Now let's do the second part. We need to call now our second function, which is calculate, right? We are calling calculate now, so calculate now performs its job to add those together. So when input will do this, input will run this part, and it would help us collect this input. So the first thing will happen is enter first number, the user will enter second number, the user will enter operation, the user will enter. Then after that is done, the next line, meaning these things are saved, the next line now is to calculate. So we have to also do the same for calculate. Let me just do this. Calculate. You notice calculate now is coming in. If you notice to calculate, we could see calculate because we have that. And now we have to be able to pass three things. If we don't pass three things to this function will not work, because here we define that it needs three things, right? So we must now, you notice that this one we did not pass anything here, but this one we must pass the three parameters as clearly stated, as defined in here. And when you're passing it, it's called an argument, not longer a parameter. When you're defining in this function, you're calling it parameters. But when you are calling the function to use the function, you're calling them arguments. So we must pass this argument. And what are we using? These values here that we just obtained now. This is what we are using. So if we had used, let me just put this way. If we are used first, second, I want you so you really follow, so it's different. If we are used first, second, and operator, this is what we are going to pass here too. We are passing first, second, and operator as well, right? So we've passed that in that function. Now we want to equate that to result. So whatever we have is result, right? It's pretty much what we were trying to do all along, right? So you save that to result, right? Now what is happening is this what is happening is now this part of the code now will be run, this one. So it takes all those stuffs, it looks at them, it does the operation, and now it saves everything. If it does addition, if it was addition, it will do addition, and the result, if it's 4 times 5, for instance, multiplication, no, 4 plus 5 is 9. It will take the value 9. That means it will calculate everything, it will take the value 9 and we store here. You understand? Okay, that's what is happening here. Okay, now this part of our code is pretty much done. This part of our code where we perform the calculation and we do everything is pretty much done. Now we want now to print stuff for us. If we don't print stuff, Python will just do them and just store them and just keep them. We'll not know what is happening. So at least let's just try to print stuff. You understand? Let's just try to print them. Okay. If result is exactly none, right? You should do, what you should print to me is what I want you to print to me. If you do the calculation and you have result to none, what I want you to print for me is invalid operation or division by 0. Okay, pretty much. I'm trying to handle now. This is edge case handling. I'm trying to handle all the things that might go wrong with my code. So at least I know where to look for to fix or what to fix. I said else. If result, that means else now this statement is only run if this condition is not known. This else part is run if this is not known, meaning if it's valid now, I'll say print 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 result. Print result. Now what we are we giving to this result is okay. So if this result is not known, means this operation was successful. If it's not known, just print the result for me. Okay. If it's not known, just print this for me. Yep. So if it's not known, print the result for me. Then also after printing the result, I want you to also print if it's palindrome or not, right? Because that was what we wanted to print. We wanted to do earlier on, right? Print because we have a function now that checks for palindrome, right? As we earlier said. So print palindrome if this is a condition that you use to print palindrome for me. Print palindrome if when you call now, we are calling out palindrome. We are giving it a parameter called result. This result that we obtain here, we are taking it and giving it and passing it to palindrome. So if you pass that result to palindrome and it reads from back to front and from front to back, which is true, if it's true, just print tell me palindrome. If that is not the case, so we are doing else. Print not palindrome. Palindrome. I keep saying, I don't mind my pronunciation, please. English is not my language. Okay. So basically, I'm telling now this section of the code, like, if you check those results, right? So I'm calling now this part of the function here in this line. If, so I told you like this is always run from back to this way. So what it's doing is it will check these conditions first. If this is palindrome, do this. Print this. Just say palindrome. If it's not, so if you check else, right? If whatever is coming out from here is not palindrome, this is what I want. So the else statement is handling this section. All right. Now, based on that, raise an exception. We are doing the don't forget, each time you're doing the try, you will always have an except as well. Except you raise the value error for me as E. Then you can now print that E for me. So this helps me to check my code, basically to check where the error is coming from. If this condition above is not met, print an error for me so I know where I should look for. I know what to look for. Okay. So basically we are finished and we can test the code. Let's see. Let me run it. See, it's now running. First part of it. So this is what is happening. This part is running, right? It asks me for first number. Let's do 120 21. Let's do addition, right? Oh, we have an error, and the error is in line in the return line where we this function, and that's okay. You always have these, okay? You always have these errors. You always have them. This is part of you writing the code. 928. Okay, this is the line where we have the issue. Let me see what I'm doing wrong here. Oh, I probably have to put a comma. Let me see. Okay. So looking at the problem we have now at this, you just have to know that this will always happen. It's just about you reading your code and seeing, like, don't be scared when errors like this happen. This is actually what will help you to become better in programming. Okay, so don't bother. Let's look. Yeah, this exception, this error is telling us that it's on line 23 and result file. Okay, here this line, no, but it's actually on line 28. Line 28 and line 23. Let me look at what I have in line 28. Okay, let me know what I have in line 23. Okay. I think this is an issue because we have operation here, which is what we are passing as a parameter, and this is it here. And now we are trying to use the same name that we have for this um, dictionary that we are trying to name with what we have at the operation. I think this is what is creating an error because probably Python is mistaking the operations it's supposed to use. Let me see this. Let me change this to this. Let's see. But I think that should be the issue. Okay, let me do it again. 121 plus. Okay, yeah. So basically we had to, this is why naming using the same stuff would do give you a problem. If you notice, we have operations here and we were trying to name this dictionary as operation as well. And so Python probably was mixing up what we are trying to call here, or if it was a dictionary or not also. So that's pretty much. If you notice now, this number read as result, this is a result of that addition, which is correct. And it said palindrome, meaning what? If you read this number from back to front and from front to back, you have the same thing. So that's a good one. We've successfully done our first exercise. Hooray! Pat yourself in the back, and hopefully we'll continue. And if you have anything, like I said, I'm open. If you have any questions that you wish to ask, if you wish to hold a meeting with me, that's fine. You can always join me or send me an email or text to my details. Okay. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye. Oh, before I forget, right? We just done one test. You can do for all. You can run this code again and do multiplication. You can do um, 4 for um and do multiplication. Okay, you see, it's telling you it's not Palladium. Okay, right? I see here I did not give a space, so it's linking everything together. Okay, now we can run the code again. We can do 12 divided by 12. We are trying to use divided by now. Okay, not Palladium. Okay, and why is it showing not Palladium? Because the result is showing a float when it's for division. And we can choose to use we can choose to do a we can choose for the results to be integers. We can choose for the result, but what if no, doing that would complicate it, because what if you're trying to divide and have like you're trying to divide and have you have like some not perfect numbers, or you will divide and you have float. What happens? You will round them up. So let's just leave it at that, but at least you understand what I mean. Now you let's do, what have we not done? We've not done subtraction. Let's do that as first number. You're trying to do subtraction now. Subtract. Okay, not Palladium still. Okay, what in the case where the user enters like a first, let's just say 12, and probably enter a word. You see, it says invalid, and it stops the stuff. So if you want to do it again, you have to run. So the exception, this is that exception, this part. This is what is raised when you do that. So it just ends the code and it raises this exception. So this part now of the code is run. So you can do it again. If you want to, you do it again. You do If you want to, you do it again. You do let's do 221. Let's do 212 operations. Let's do add. So you notice it is running this other part of the code for the exception. It is running this part now. This part of it, invalid operator, or this. You understand? So I just wanted to make sure you see, because the operator we're giving is not recognized. So that's why you don't have something. But we could have done it in such a way. We could do it in such a way it understands addition, but it complicates the whole program. So I just wanted to make sure we stay specific. You can fix this as you want, okay? You can do it. So like I said, applaud yourself. You've done well, and see you on the next exercise. And if you have anything, just reach out and I'll gladly work with you and see you or explain certain things to you. All right. Thank you. Take care.